Job was a man unlike any other. In a world full of compromise and chaos, he stood like a pillar, blameless, upright, devoted to God. He was the kind of man people pointed to and said, "That's what righteousness looks like." He had it all: wealth, family, honor, peace. But more than that, he had integrity. Every morning, he'd rise early to offer burnt sacrifices, praying for his children in case they had sinned in their hearts. Not because he feared judgment, but because he feared a life without God's presence. He walked humbly, even with abundance. But far beyond what Job could see, a conversation was taking place in the courts of heaven. The angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came with them. God said, "Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one like him, blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." And Satan smirked. "Of course he worships you. Look how you've blessed him. You've built a hedge around his life. Take it away, and he'll curse you to your face." So God allowed the test. One by one, messengers came crashing into Job's world. One said his oxen were stolen and the servants killed. Another said fire fell from the sky and burned his sheep. A third reported the Chaldeans had taken the camels. And then the fourth, his children. All 10 of them. Gone in an instant, crushed when the house collapsed. Job tore his robe, shaved his head, fell to the ground, and worshipped. "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." He didn't blame. He didn't curse. He grieved, but through the ashes he still called God's name. But the enemy wasn't done. Satan returned, insisting, "Skin for skin. Let me touch his body, and he'll curse you." God allowed it again, but spared Job's life. Soon Job was covered in boils from head to toe. His skin cracked and oozed. He sat in the dust, scraping his wounds with broken pottery. The pain was unbearable. The silence from heaven, louder than screams. His wife, devastated and bitter, looked at him and said, "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job looked at her with tear-filled eyes and whispered, "Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" Then came his friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar. They came to comfort, but after sitting with him in silence for 7 days, they began to speak. And their words stung. They accused him, questioned him. "Surely you've sinned. No one suffers like this without reason." Job defended himself, not in pride, but in pain. He cried out to God, "Why was I born? Why didn't I die at birth? What have I done to deserve this?" He begged for answers, for justice, for relief. But heaven stayed silent. For a while. And then, from the whirlwind, God spoke. "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundations? Who marked off its dimensions? Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb? Have you commanded the morning? Do you send lightning bolts on their way?" God didn't give Job the reason for his suffering. He gave him something greater. Perspective. The revelation of who he is. And Job, broken and trembling, said, "Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. I repent in dust and ashes." God wasn't angry with Job. He was pleased. But he rebuked Job's friends for speaking wrongly about him. "Go to Job, and he will pray for you. I will accept his prayer." And Job did. He prayed for the same friends who had misjudged him. And in that moment of humility, God restored him. Double everything he had lost. Twice the wealth, new children, new joy. But Job was never the same man again. Because what he gained wasn't just possessions. He gained depth. He gained understanding. He gained the presence of God in the middle of the storm. His legacy wasn't in what he owned. It was in what he endured. Job lived 140 more years. He saw his children and their children to the 4th generation, and he died, old and full of days. But the greatest part of his story wasn't the ending. It was his faith in the middle. Because faith that only survives the sunshine is shallow. But faith that clings in the storm, that shakes, bleeds, mourns, and still whispers, "Blessed be his name," that's unshakable. So if you're suffering, if you're questioning, if you feel like heaven is silent, remember this. You may not get a reason, but you can get a revelation. And that may be exactly what your soul needs most.